Welcome to Truthwave Media. Today, it's my great honor to have the Virginia Governor Candidate Sergio Peña to join us and have an interview with us. Welcome, Sergio.
Thank you very much, Jenny. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. And we are going to have quick question and quick answer. So each question will take 1 minute to answer. And we will start now.
Okay, great.
We think we need to give police more authority and freedom. We can improve the training of police, but we cannot defund police. What do you think?
No, I agree. We cannot defund police. I've been throughout the world in assisting our government to train police in how to properly conduct law and order in their own countries. And one of the things that you don't want is to have poorly trained police. So you have to make sure that you fully fund them so that they can understand what the laws of the country are and how to execute them and do it in a way that is professional. So defunding the police is a horrible idea. The only way that you can have proper policing is to have professional police.
Thank you. What is your view on legalizing marijuana? What if my neighbor wants to plant it in his backyard?
You know, the unfortunate thing about marijuana laws is that they're very concerning because on the one hand, you have the people that speak and say that they want marijuana legalized, but by the same token, you've got government agencies that don't agree with the legalization because they have concerns on the effects of marijuana on their employees. So this is one of those issues that really has to be determined by the people. I am not personally in favor of legalizing marijuana, but that may be a moot point because in many states, what you have is that the majority of the people want it and it's very difficult to stop. But we need to have uniformity in the way that those laws are executed.
Chinese American children are severely discriminated against in state university admissions. How do you look at the admission quota by race?
The admission quota by race is not a good idea. It should be based on your own talents, because what ends up happening, especially when you look at certain communities that emphasize the importance of education, the Asian community being one, you see what they do to Harvard. There's plenty of Asian American students or American students of Asian descent that apply to Harvard and they end up being rejected by the mere fact that the distribution isn't there. So artificial distributions don't work. Obviously, the university should reflect what the United States looks like, but you have to make sure that you follow the admission process by the talent, the academic talent of the student.
Thank you. Are the recent Asian hate crimes results of systematic racism or individual racism?
You know, unfortunately, that's a very sad account that's occurring because we are all Americans. And if you look at the Asian hate crimes, who is perpetrating those crimes? I think you have to analyze exactly what it is that's happening. Because if the perpetrators are from another race, then we need to identify what's causing them to commit these hate crimes, and they should be punished. We should not be singling out anybody on the basis of race. It's wrong, it's un-American, it needs to stop, but we also need to understand who is it that's committing these crimes so that you can target those communities and say, that's not acceptable.
What is your plan to enforce election integrity? Do you think there is election fraud in 2020 election in Virginia? Do you support a strict review of voter qualifications?
You know, the unfortunate part of what happened in Virginia on a reference with election integrity is that the state changed the laws based on a COVID environment, and now they want to institutionalize those laws. So we may never know the extent of what voter fraud occurred, but I am very, very concerned about voter integrity. We have to fix that first, because if you destroy voter integrity, you destroy the strength of the institutions. And if you destroy the strength of the institutions, you destroy the value of democracy. I've observed elections internationally 3 times. And I have a very serious concern about election integrity. We need to make sure that we keep it. So once I'm elected, I need to make sure that that's going to be my top priority.
Current governor signed an executive order to revoke voter ID requirement. What is your view on that?
That is, I am completely opposed to eliminating voter ID requirement. We need voter ID requirement to get on a plane, to buy cigarettes, to buy certain medicines, to do just about anything, to go into certain federal buildings. But yet the most sacred right that we have for a free country, a free democracy, is to have free and fair elections and transparent elections, and taking away that requirement to prove who you are is absolutely ridiculous. There's no other country in the world that allows people to willy-nilly vote without having their identification thoroughly checked.
About our attitude to history and tradition, shall we change the names of the sculptures, buildings, and roads that were built in history? Regarding the school patriotic education, do you support the 1776 Commission or 1619 project?
History is history. You know, it's very unfortunate that we're talking about destroying historical monuments, because that's what authoritarian and totalitarian regime, as you well know. Once you start destroying history, then what does the narrative become? We need to study history for what it is. This country was based on the American experiment. That experiment began here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we need to protect that experiment, because this has created the greatest good for the world in the history of humanity. And when you start with certain aspects of its history, now you can explain that certain things happened that were not good, but if you look at the rest of the world, why are people dying to come here? There's a reason. It's because it's the American dream, and we need to make sure that we preserve it. And destroying history is not the way to do it.
How is your plan to improve the jobs in Virginia?
Well, my wife always tells me, based on an economist, this is not an original idea, that wealth is the product of human creativity and a free environment. We need to create that free environment. And the best way to do that is you reduce taxes, you reduce regulations, and then you reduce government spending. That opens up the opportunity for businesses to thrive. And those businesses will provide jobs, and those jobs will provide a stronger economy. We saw it with President Donald Trump. That's exactly what he did. And we saw how well the economy did under his tutelage. Now, if you look at what's happening in the current administration, we're going exactly in reverse, and you're seeing the effects of a weak economy that's just going to get progressively worse.
When are you planning to open the state, including school, completely? Do you support vaccine passport?
I would open the economy, the schools, open up the Commonwealth of Virginia immediately upon taking office. And no, I do not support vaccine passports. I believe that vaccines need to be made available to all Americans as quickly as possible so that they have access to those vaccines. But I would not make it mandatory. This is not who we are. This is un-American. And I would say that you need to evaluate with your doctor what your vulnerabilities are, because we need to make sure that each one of these decisions is made individually, and vaccine passports are not the way to go, because that establishes a pattern. What happens the next time that the government wants to mandate you take something else? And oh, by the way, you can't sue these companies. So I do not want to see the vaccination passports implemented.
Do you support MAGA movement? What is your view on what happened on January 6, 2021?
I worked for President Donald Trump. I worked on his campaign, and we brought in Hispanic voters to unprecedented levels at that time, and I support his movement. What concerns me is that the reason that people came to Washington is they had concerns about an election, and it became something couched as an insurrection. But the answers were never provided to the people that were there peacefully protesting, asking for an explanation of what happened to the election. To this date, we've not addressed it. So that still needs to be addressed, because half of the United States is still concerned about the election, and there's never been an adequate response provided, something that could very easily be done.
If Virginia proposes a bill that robbery under $999 is not considered a crime like California, are you going to support it?
Absolutely not. A crime is a crime. If you break the law, you have to answer to the law. When you allow that to happen, it's like the broken glass theory. Once you allow some crimes to be punished and others not punished, next thing you know, you have total disorder. And we already see what's happening in these Democratic-led cities that have increasingly spikes in crime that are unprecedented. And we need to go back to a country that believes in law and order and compliance with the law.
That's all the questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Let me do one more screenshot if you don't mind. Thank you.